Oh.
Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have a lot to cover. I actually have, on top of Trump administration updates, and Elon Musk updates. We also have quite a few things here about New York State that I think you're going to find very interesting. First, let's go to a few viewer comments after yesterday's program and early into this morning. After yesterday's show, hello, Frank. Hello. I think you were on assignment Monday. Yes, I was on assignment on Monday. Just my 2 cents on the Super Bowl poll. I believe Tay-Tay and Trump both were seen 3 times, including a commercial. I'm sure this will just make your day knowing this important tidbit. I've heard varying numbers. I think we all must have been going to get snacks at certain times and missed it all, but it seems like it was about a tie. Now, if you recall the poll that we were taking all last week, Taylor Swift did take the lead in what people thought, who they thought would be shown on camera more, but it seems as if it was pretty even, though I know at the end of the day, Trump kind of got the last laugh because he was cheered when he was shown on the big screen on the Jumbotron, where Taylor Swift was booed at one point, and that made some noise and some news. So thank you for that. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Couple of questions. Do you have any idea, or are there any records of how much money the IRS sends out each year for tax refunds? I do not know that number off the top of my head, and I'm not sure how easily that number would be to get. I can do a little research. Also, given that the IRS already knows how much a person makes each week, I have to wonder why they don't just take out exactly what is owed instead of, in most cases, overtaxing us. Given the above, then I wonder if the IRS is even a necessary agency. The only issue I can surmise regarding the necessity of a federal or state tax department, given my limited knowledge on these agencies, is, and I know I'm not the first to suggest it, that if President Trump could implement a flat tax rate and without eliminating deductions, then Elon and Doge could save us who knows how much money by eliminating the IRS. Now, I know there's been a push for a flat tax for quite some time by various conservatives. The viewer added on an addendum to the aforementioned regarding deductions. This would have to naturally be reliant upon an individual's honesty, reporting the number of deductions he or she is entitled to. And finally, there are and will be those who will say that the rich should pay more. But I would argue that they are paying just as much as you are. They're paying more. I mean, if you look at the numbers on how much they're paying, that's why always going to the well, and unfortunately New York has done this specifically, going to the well and taxing the rich. Well, as we see in New York State, it causes them to leave the state. You can't just, when you look at the numbers, you can't just keep going to the wealthiest 1%. Okay, thank you for those comments. Okay, first of all, the breaking news story coming in late last night, the wrongfully detained United States teacher, Mark Fogel, is calling Trump a hero as he has been released from that Russian prison. The Pennsylvania teacher, Mark Fogel, said, "I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero," he said. I saw he had the American flag draped around him, and I go, is that a beer in his hand? And it was, which is kind of interesting, next to Donald Trump, the teetotaler. But Fogel continued, "These men that came from the diplomatic services are heroes. The senators and representatives that passed legislation in my honor to get me home, those are the heroes. I'm in awe of what they all did." Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senator Dave McCormick, and Representative Brian Mast were among several dignitaries that lined up behind the president to shake Fogel's hand, who was just in hog heaven. He was so happy, in such a cheerful mood. Fogel had been wrongfully detained for the last 3.5 years in Russia after being arrested with what he claimed was legally prescribed marijuana. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz announced earlier in the day that the president, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and other Trump advisors successfully negotiated an exchange for Fogel that, quote, serves as a show of good faith from the Russians and a sign we are moving in the right direction to end the brutal and terrible war in Ukraine. Now, Donald Trump did not, and this is how the media was trying to spin it as a negative, as I was watching this morning, saying it is not known what Trump gave up for this man, putting some bad deal, plant that seed in your head as if Donald Trump made a bad deal and all this. Did not seem to have the same kind of concerns when President Biden would get a hostage release. But in this case, Trump would not speak to what was actually given in exchange for Mr. Fogel, so it must be bad. Now, Trump did describe the deal as very fair and very reasonable. The president also suggested that it could be a major part of negotiations to end the nearly 3-year-long war in Ukraine. "I think this could be a very important element," Trump said. "You could be a big part of it," actually, looking at Fogel, "because it could be a big, important part of getting the war over with Ukraine." Trump would not say if he spoke directly to Vladimir Putin about securing the release, but expressed his appreciation for his counterpart in the Kremlin. Fogel noted that Putin was very generous and statesmanlike in granting me a pardon. Yes, he was, again, wearing an American flag draped around him with an unopened beer, as far as I could tell. But they tweeted a picture of him on the plane saying, "Promises made, promises kept." Secretary of State Marco Rubio said this is a case that languished under the Biden administration. They really didn't give it priority. It is really a happy occasion for all Americans, but certainly for Mr. Fogel's family. Now, you know the whole story. This is something we've talked about for quite some time. Trump met Fogel's mother, 95-year-old mother, in July of last year at a Butler campaign rally where he was nearly assassinated, and promised her that he would bring her son home. Trump saying at the time he's got a great mother, and when I saw his mother at a rally, she said, "If you win, will you get my son out?" And I promised, she's 95 years old, that we get him out, and we got him out pretty quickly. I had to get him back home because I would have been in big trouble with his mom. So that is the breaking story this morning, happening late last night, that after 3.5 long years, Mark Fogel has been released from that Russian prison. Okay. Also, the U.S. envoy has said another American hostage is set to return home today. This is according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio in an interview on CNN yesterday. "We have another American coming in Wednesday." Neither guest would say who the hostage was or where they were located. In a phone interview with Sean Hannity, Adam Bowler, the special envoy for hostages, said it'll be unilaterally as well. And I can't release until the person is released, obviously. it would endanger a hostage release, and that I can't do. But I can say that we expect another one Wednesday, and hopefully a lot more, though that through the president has made it, because the president, has made it a priority to get all Americans home. So that is a quick update. Also on the Russia-Ukraine front, Ukraine it is being reported, is prepared to offer a territory swap with Russia, according to President Zelensky. Zelensky will meet with Vice President J.D. Vance on Friday at the Munich Security Conference. Vance has been a critic of U.S. support that has been vital to Ukraine's war effort. Zelensky said, "There are voices which say that Europe could offer security guarantees without the Americans. I always say no. Security guarantees without America are not real security guarantees," said Zelensky. So we will keep an eye on that breaking story as well. And if you recall, on a different hostage front, President Trump made the real serious, and I guess you could call it a threat, to Hamas, saying release the hostages by Saturday at noon, or there will be hell to pay, or all hell will break loose. I can't remember how he exactly worded it. Well, that was said by Trump. Many speculated, what would Israel say in response? Would they back up Trump's statement? Would they have a different opinion on how to handle the quote-unquote ceasefire and the hostage negotiations? Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday that if Hamas did not release all 73 of the remaining hostages still in Gaza by noon on Saturday, the Israel Defense Forces would resume attacking until the final defeat of Hamas. He issued the ultimatum a day after Donald Trump said that Hamas had until noon on Saturday as well. Trump, in turn, was responding to Hamas's announcement that it was pausing the release of hostages after the latest hostages to be released shocked the world with their emaciated appearances, drawing global criticism of the group. Netanyahu released in a statement, "I have just finished an in-depth 4-hour Security Cabinet meeting. We all expressed outrage over the shocking state of our 3 hostages who were released last Saturday. We all welcome President Trump's demand to release our hostages by Saturday noon as well, and we all welcomed the president's revolutionary vision for the future of Gaza. In light of Hamas's announcement regarding its decision to violate the agreement and not release our hostages, last night I instructed the IDF to amass forces inside and surrounding the Gaza Strip. This action is being carried out at this hour and will be completed very soon. The unanimous decision that I passed in the cabinet is as follows. If Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end, and the IDF will resume intense fighting until the final defeat of Hamas." Wow, we went through a lot of updates, international updates. Now, President Trump was with King Abdullah of Jordan, and he said at that meeting, "We're going to have Gaza, and it will be magnificent." Gaza, one of the stories that has been coming up quite frequently, the Riviera of the Middle East, as Trump calls it, when it's all said and done. A major sticking point would be relocating the Palestinians to another location while Gaza is rebuilt. This would almost certainly mean moving large numbers of the population of Egypt and Jordan to Egypt and Jordan, both of which feel they already have more than enough Palestinians. Trump has previously indicated he would consider using economic leverage to get Egypt and Jordan to take more refugees. After meeting with Abdullah, whom he described as a great man, Trump said sanctions were no longer on his mind. "I don't have to threaten that. I do believe we're above that." Now, the King of Jordan told Trump he'll take 2,000 Gaza kids, as Trump says there is a 99% chance Egypt will back the plans on the Gaza Strip. As Trump predicted that Jordan and Egypt would each set aside a parcel of land for Palestinians to live ahead of a U.S. takeover of the enclave. And he did say, "We will take it." He was questioned if it would involve taxpayers' dollars. He said no. He also highlighted that the word "take it over," and what did he say? "Hold it dear." So continuing in the news, what the King Abdullah said, "One of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible." Abdullah's government previously rejected Trump's plan to deport Gazans to the country and to Egypt And the monarch said Tuesday that after taking in the children, he would then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president. All right, so there's a lot of international updates. We do have a lot to talk about with New York State issues that we're going to get to. A couple of other just breaking stories from yesterday. It is interesting, the news cycle. I know we've been talking about it a lot lately, but the news cycle, when it comes to the Trump administration, there is just so much to cover. Some of the stories you may have missed, some of the stories that broke early in the morning no longer almost seem relevant compared to what happens later in the day. That is just a typical news cycle. So we're going to try to cover as much as we possibly can this morning, but we're just getting started. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardians at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
I would never picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
Let's beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy in your very own Hesselson's Hot Tub? With every spot purchase, Hesselson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hesselson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hesselson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you to everyone sending in their comments, sending in their statements. I appreciate it. Let's go to a few of those. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. Trump's team is doing its job. First, USAID corruption is being taken care of. Now FEMA is being dealt with. They are overhauling it and finding a lot of things like housing illegals at our expense. Go team. Yes, we're going to talk about FEMA specifically a little bit later on, giving you more information about what we're learning. But as of yesterday, those employees of FEMA were fired for the erroneous $59 million payment for New York City migrants. Effective immediately, FEMA is terminating the employment of 4 individuals for circumventing leadership to unilaterally make erroneous payments to luxury New York City hotels for migrants. Okay, so think about that for a moment. Circumventing leadership, and they somehow could spend $59 million. If Doge had not been there, if Elon Musk was not looking into FEMA directly, we would probably never know about that $59 million in tax-paying dollars going to these luxury hotels for illegal migrants. So yes, we're going to talk about that more. Now let's go to a different comment. This is from Ken in Horseheads. Good morning, Ken. Frank, I found the below statement from Trump online. Quote, I'm hereby instructing Secretary Lee Zeldin to immediately go back to my environmental orders, which were terminated by crooked Joe Biden, on water standards and flow pertaining to sinks, showers, toilets, washing machines, dishwashers, etc. And to likewise go back to the common sense standards on light bulbs. They were put into place by the Trump administration but terminated by crooked Joe. I look forward to signing these orders. Well, if the length of time it was online was correct, it was posted about 8:30 a.m. yesterday, about half an hour after Frankly Speaking concluded. This is proof positive that President Trump listens to Frankly Speaking and heard my comments to bring back incandescent light bulbs. I think you're right, Ken. There's too many coincidences where we're having too many things that we bring up on the program being directly addressed by either Trump or someone else in Washington or in the media. So I think you're right. And I think if at the end of the day, incandescent light bulbs make the comeback that we hope that they do, I think we should all take full credit. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it, though. I do think there's something there. Okay. This is an update because I know people have had some questions. Yesterday, there was quite a bit of snow for Washington, D.C., so they're kind of thwarted the midnight session to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. So we are now seeing that confirmation vote being held today. Gabbard is slated for a final Senate confirmation vote to be Trump's director of national intelligence on Wednesday morning. After the planned midnight vote was scrapped due to a snowstorm in Washington, the 30 hours of post-cloture debate officially expires on her nomination just after midnight. So former Democrat Representative Tulsi Gabbard will face the confirmation vote by the Senate earlier this morning. Frequently, the debate between the cloture motion and the final vote is minimized in what's referred to a time agreement between Republicans and Democrats. But with the controversial nature of Gabbard's nomination and ongoing frustrations with the Department of Government Efficiency and its government audit, no such agreement is expected. Gabbard is expected to be confirmed and has already amassed support from hesitant Republicans who voted against Pete Hegseth, which required the vice president come in and be the tie-breaking vote. Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who often are considered to kind of be the most moderate members, kind of the fly in the ointment quite frequently, they have both already come out in support of Gabbard. Both lawmakers voted against confirming Pete Hegseth. So that vote, as an update for those of you that are wondering, that vote should be early this morning. I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it on tomorrow's program. And as always, during the program, I'll keep an eye on breaking news to see if there's anything to report during the broadcast. We're going to come back and bring up two kind of, I'm going to say, odd updates, not really expected. Then we're going to get into New York State issues. Later on in the program, we are going to talk about FEMA. We're going to talk about Doge. You've undoubtedly seen Elon Musk giving that kind of press conference in the Oval Office, talking about what Doge is doing, answering questions. We're going to talk about that and what we learned as well later on in the program. Keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, Elmaron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmaron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmaron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmaron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Trust your smile to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
Well, why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years' experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. As was reported late last night, and you may have seen the video as well, the wrongfully detained United States teacher, Mark Fogel, calls Trump a hero during his White House meeting after being released from prison, a Russian prison, after 3.5 years. So that is a breaking story from last night. Something that may have missed your radar, and no pun intended on this, the Chinese balloon that sparked panic, the spy balloon that was talked about with very little information given at the time, though definitely raised concerns. It was surprisingly, it was with U.S.-made technology inside. The 200-foot tall balloon was loaded with a satellite communications module, sensors, and other technology from at least 5 American firms. That's from 2 sources with direct knowledge of a classified U.S. military report that they spoke with Newsweek. The craft, which floated from Alaska over Canada and into the U.S. Midwest before it was shot down off the coast of South Carolina back in February of 2023, could have collected detailed data on oblivious Americans, citing that was discovered in parts of the recovered balloon. That included tech to survey, take photographs, and collect other intelligence data, and even, listen to this, and even launchable gliders that could have flown on other recon missions. This, again, according to anonymous sources speaking with Newsweek. A Chinese company would not have given them a full satellite communications coverage of the U.S., one of the sources, a former federal intelligence employee, said. The technology matched a patent awarded in 2022 to scientists at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Aerospace, Information, Innovation Research Institute in Beijing, which has links to China's military, So that's just a little bit of an update on how really intelligence was used against Americans, what kind of equipment was used. You can find out more at Newsweek or the New York Post. Kind of put together a speedier piece on it, just giving you an update. Also, I guess you could say this section of the program is a little bit stranger than others. Representative Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, the head of a new congressional task force aimed at exposing federal secrets. Yes, there's a new congressional task force aimed at exposing federal secrets. Said yesterday that she believes, quote, 2 shooters were involved in the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy. The task force, which is also to probe pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's client list, intends to build on the Trump administration's efforts to declassify records related to the assassination of JFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. And we'll start with a thorough investigation of JFK's November 1963 shooting death in Dallas, Texas. Quote, this is Luna, Representative Luna. Based on what I've been seeing so far, the initial hearing that was actually held here in Congress was actually faulty in the single bullet theory. Luna told press at a conference on Capitol Hill. She was referring to the Warren Commission. She continued, I believe that there were 2 shooters. The Warren Commission, a nearly year-long government probe into the JFK assassination, determined that Kennedy was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald, who acted alone. However, the House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded in its final report back in 1979 that Kennedy, quote, was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, end quote. Luna said there's been conflicting evidence, and I think that even the FBI at the time reported some anomalies in the initial autopsy in Maryland. All of them, though, seem to have been rinsed and repeated in the media to push a certain narrative that we don't agree with. She noted that she hopes the new task force can put to bed some of the theories that have been out there about the JFK assassination with the full truth. And the full truth starts with transparency. The bipartisan task force plans to bring in some of the attending physicians at the initial assassination to provide testimony, as well as people that sat on various commissions investigating the assassination. The Florida Republican also hopes the task force, which will be housed under the House Oversight Committee, will be allowed to review thousands of pages of JFK assassination files before they were released to the public. So take that for whatever it's worth. Just something that came across my desk yesterday. Luna said the task force will also investigate unidentified aerial phenomena. That's the new term for UFO. Unidentified submerged objects, the client list of dead sex offender Epstein, the origins of COVID-19, and the government files related to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Luna said, "We will work alongside President Trump and his cabinet members to deliver truth to the American people. From this moment forward, we will restore trust through transparency." All right, keeping a close eye on all that. Now, we do have a lot to talk about when it comes to New York State issues. I do want to get into Musk and what he had to say. Oh, one, do I want to go here? Yeah, just as an update, because we're talking about government cuts and some of this fraud and some of this corruption and some of this waste and however you want to look at it. Specifically, we talked about FEMA, and we're going to talk more about it. But that $58 million that was going to luxurious hotels to house migrants in New York City, somehow the 4 employees bypassed leadership to somehow get $58 million approved. And if Elon Musk wasn't paying attention, wasn't looking over the books, I'm sure that's not something that would have been brought to the taxpayers' attention. But one of the issues that got a lot of talks over the last few days is about the penny, getting rid of the penny. And we've had kind of a mixed bag here of what people believe when it comes to getting rid of the penny. Well, President Trump, let me take a step back. Shark Tank star Kevin O'Leary, he was on Fox, and he addressed the ending of minting pennies. In fiscal year 2024, the U.S. had to pay 3 cents to make 1 penny. 5 cents. I think these numbers are, they're a little screwy. But O'Leary said, "Who uses pennies anyway? Unless you're putting them in your loafers, and nobody does that anymore. Get rid of it. It's useless." The department, Doge, which is led by Musk, posted on X that producing the penny is costing American taxpayers tens of millions of dollars, suggesting it may be one of the items the department may consider ridding. So you have a lot of people, and there was a Democrat senator, the name is not here in front of me, I know I have it here somewhere, who came out and said, "Hey, I think it's a good idea as well." So it does seem to be getting some bipartisan support. Your thoughts on ridding of the penny? That was me just killing a little time before we start talking about New York State issues. We are going to talk about Musk, FEMA, all that much more. And if you are just joining us, that detained teacher, Mark Fogel, was released from the Russian prison. He was at the White House yesterday. You can see those kind of touching videos with the American flag draped over his shoulders and a beer in his hand. So that was announced late yesterday if you are just waking up and just joining us. All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to move on to New York State issues, an update on Elise Stefanik's special election, not hers, but the special election to fill her seat. We'll talk about that and how Hochul tried to spin that yesterday. We've also got a few things here about, why kill time? I'll tell you about it when we get back. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Trust your smile to Dr. Hench's at either Watkins Glen, Elmira, Horseheads, or Elkland Family Dentistry. All 4 locations provide cutting-edge technology to make sure your visit is comfortable and stress-free. Dr. Hench's offers treatment in all areas of dentistry, including same-day crowns, implants, root canals, oral surgery, and treatment for all ages. For the best dental care in the region, trust Dr. Hench's and his staff at Watkins Glen, Horseheads, Elmira, and Elkland Family Dentistry. Call any one of his offices today or visit them online for more information.
Well, why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife Catherine.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Just grabbing that. Okay, here we go. New York State issues. Governor Hochul bizarrely tried to distance herself from a plan to hobble Trump's agenda by delaying a special election. They had been working on this, what it was supposed to do. At first, it sounded like they were going to delay the special election for Lee Stefanik's seat to the primaries, because her excuse was, well, the cost, as if that's ever been an issue in New York State. But it was a cost. And then we started to hear that they were actually talking about it being in November. Now, why is this important? Because a Republican would most likely win that seat. It is a very heavy red district. And so they don't want Trump to have any more Republicans in the House. They want it to be an even slimmer majority. It was purely political, and it got so much pushback that they supposedly tabled it. Now we even have Governor Hochul distancing herself from it. Hochul stopped Democrat state lawmakers from ramming through a bill Monday as she looks to negotiate with Trump over his threats to scrap congestion pricing. So, and I read a very interesting piece this morning suggesting, oh, I forgot to read this comment. Hold on. Well, anyway, I'm sorry I missed your comment here, Mark. I'll mention in just a second. But that they said they shouldn't use this as a negotiating chip, that this is just the wrong thing to do. But that's what maybe Hochul has on her mind, to have that in her back pocket if Trump tries to take away her precious congestion pricing. On Tuesday, she claimed she had nothing to do with the plan, even as the state Senate Democrat leader said it was all Hochul. Well, Hochul does think she's a little bit more politically brilliant than she is, we'll say. And we've seen that backfire, even to the point where Nancy Pelosi blamed her personally for the loss in the midterm elections last go around, which there's a very good point to be made that it's Hochul's fault. And then Hochul nearly lost to Lee Zeldin. Why? Because she hired, where was the guy out of, Wisconsin or Montana? I know, very different places, but it was hired somebody as kind of her advisor that didn't even live in New York State. He told her to push one narrative on the campaign trail, and it just didn't work. Her whole campaign was on abortion. When Lee Zeldin talked about public safety, and yes, did she ultimately win? She did in the deep blue New York. But Lee Zeldin came very close. That's why so many people are questioning what 2026 is going to look like for Governor Hochul. Not just if a strong Republican faces her, but if she has to have that primary challenge against Richie Torres, which is looking more and more likely. I don't introduce bills. It's not the role of the governor, said Hochul. The bill would have changed special election rules so that Republican representatives, at least Stefanik's seat, would stay empty when she resigns to become Trump's ambassador to the UN. And that's why some are also speculating why there's such a delay on confirming her to be ambassador to the UN, seeing if they should wait until, some major parts of Trump's agenda go through the House. The North Country District is reliably red, and leaving it open would ensure that House Republicans have a razor-thin majority of only 2 seats until November. Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins contradicted Hochul's stance, saying it began with her, and if she's interested in holding it, that's fine. Stewart Cousins still painted her relationship with Hochul as rosy, and so the legislature and the governor are still working together. Now we know that Hakeem Jeffries was very instrumental in this too. He was pushing it for obvious reasons. The bill would also apply to special elections to fill state legislative seats, such as the one now held by State Senator Simcha Felder. The South Brooklyn district would present a pickup opportunity for Republicans. It's not clear what the substance of Hochul's discussion with Trump entails, but sources said the governor had asked to halt the bill as part of their back and forth. Last month, Hochul launched a $9 congestion toll, and you could see where Trump would not take kindly to this if he talked with Governor Hochul. So I can see why maybe that bill was now tabled. Hochul even tried to deflect the blame for delaying the bill to Republicans fed up with the effort. They're just so hyperbolic that you really have to just tune it out because that's all they do. And there's no substance behind all that. That's Governor Hochul. Republicans cheered the temporary pause of the bill, and I think that's what's important to know, that it is a temporary pause. Nothing said that this is going to go away. When Elise Stefanik gets confirmed to be ambassador to the UN, when will they hold a special election? I don't think just because they quote unquote tabled this that it's going away. Will Barclay, the Assembly Minority Leader, said, "It defies all logic to think the governor had no knowledge or any involvement. But with a bill this bad, plausible deniability goes a long way. From Albany right to Hakeem Jeffries' office." Assemblyman Ari Brown said, "Ding dong, the wicked bill is dead." All right, and then a picture of Hochul photoshopped as the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz. The Times Union editorial board said, "Partisanship is destructive when it insists that any action is good when your team does it and bad if the other side is doing it. A thing that is demonstrably bad, such as a cynical change in election law designed to win short-term political advantage, stays that way regardless of who is pushing it. Such is the case with New York Democrats' abortive legislative effort to shut down Stefanik's congressional seat for as long as possible. The attempt left Republicans howling, but everyone who believes in election integrity and political fair play should have been revolted." And that's the thing. When you started seeing some Democrats supporting this and not, especially after 4 years, well, at least the whole campaign cycle, but yeah, 4 years of talking about Trump being a threat to democracy and Republicans being a threat to democracy. And then they were essentially saying they wanted to see the 21st Congressional District in New York without any representation for that many months, from February until November. The Democrats' bill, introduced Friday night by Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins and Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, would have allowed congressional special elections to be folded into general elections, regardless of whether a vacancy occurs in January or in July. The stated goal of the legislation was to, quote, increase efficiency in certain special elections and increase voter turnout. In reality, it was a short-term ploy to narrow the Republican majority in the U.S. House of Representatives by 1 seat, at least for a little while. The seat in the North Country's 21st Congressional District will be open soon because Ms. Stefanik is poised to become the ambassador to the UN, as we know. Under current law, Governor Hochul would have 10 days after the vacancy occurs to schedule a special election, which would take place roughly 2.5 months after that. The Democrat attempt to push back the election shows how little party leaders think of their chances of winning in that rural district. There's no question their candidate, Blake Gendenbein, a dairy farmer and former school board member, faces long odds. But he's the candidate they chose. And the right way for any party to expand a congressional conference is to fight like heck to flip seats. That effort would have been severely hindered if Mr. Genbein had been obligated at every campaign stop from now maybe until November to defend or even explain the Democrats' efforts to push off a special election. It's not as if Democrats don't have a strong case to make right now to North Country voters. They could highlight the upstate economic uncertainty brought on by Trump's ill-conceived Canadian tariff battle. So as you can tell, this is the Times Union taking the moral high ground, saying it doesn't matter what party it is, people should be outraged by it, but then let's prove our Democratic bona fides and go in and attack everything that Trump has done. If those developments are signs of an emergency, delaying the election would have signaled the opposite. The Democrats are just fine leaving the 21st district without anyone representing their interests in Washington for the rest of 2025. The Trump administration's open assault on the structures of government represent a threat to the balance of power and the rule of law. Why would Democrats rewrite election law and give up on that narrative that they're the ones trying to protect democracy? Well, they've proven time and time again that they're not the ones trying to protect democracy. For instance, trying to keep Trump off the ballot. But we don't have to relitigate all that. Moves like this lead people to conclude that the entire political class is rotten and self-serving, and it doesn't matter who's in charge because the end result will be more or less of the same. Putting a stake through the heart of this bill was the right thing to do. Too bad Democrats realized it too late. Well, they're receiving the pushback that they should have received on it, and that's why you have Governor Hochul trying to distance herself from that bill. But I don't think they had the moral high ground when it comes to protecting democracy, as we saw in the election season of 2024. We've got a couple other New York State issues. Then we're going to get to the federal government. We got to take a short break. Again, if you are just waking up this morning, the detained U.S. teacher, Mark Fogel, was released from the Russian prison. He met with Donald Trump yesterday. He called Donald Trump a hero. He had been in that Russian prison for 3.5 years, serving because they found marijuana on him that he said was prescription. But that's where we're at this morning. Okay, stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Our son Brett to a glioblastoma. This was our last chance to show our community who he really was. Carpenters, Phillips, and Flint, they were so willing to create that ceremony however we wanted to do it. They could not have been more gracious.
You should consider them highly. You'll feel good about your thoughts and your decisions.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustleson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustleson's Hot Tub? With every spa purchase, Hustleson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustleson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustleson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go to some viewer comments. Well, one viewer comment specifically. Mark writes in, I love this open government. We're finally finding out who is corrupt and is leaning to the left. Yes, there's a lot of updates on that from Elon Musk and that press conference that they held yesterday. What more we're learning about FEMA and just the job that DOGE is doing in general. We're going to talk about that once we wrap up our discussion here on New York State issues. As an update, someone you have not heard in the media recently, but we should know more, That's former aide to Governor Hochul, Linda Sun, who was accused of being an unregistered agent of China and the Chinese Communist Party. She has been indicted on new money laundering charges. A former aide to Governor Kathy Hochul, who lives on Long Island, and her husband are facing new money laundering charges in connection with allegations that she used her position in New York State government to act as an unregistered agent of China and the Chinese Communist Party, according to the indictment. Now, keep in mind, they mentioned Hochul, but she also worked for the Cuomo administration as well. We've got a quick update on Cuomo. But the superseding indictment unsealed in federal court in Brooklyn yesterday adds 4 counts of money laundering, 1 count of money laundering conspiracy against Linda Sun, the former deputy chief of staff to Hochul. Yes, the deputy chief of staff to Hochul. And 3 counts of money laundering and 1 count of money laundering conspiracy against her husband, Chris Hu. The new charges cite 3 $500,000 bank transactions totaling $1.5 million that Hu made in 2020. Both defendants entered pleas of not guilty before the U.S. District Judge Brian Cogan. So that is just an update. Yes, we know that there has not been a lot of information given about her and her ties, alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party. We know that Governor Hochul tried to distance herself from Linda Sun as well as Cuomo. Prosecutors have alleged the pair laundered millions of dollars in proceeds from Chinese government officials to buy the $4 million mansion and a 2024 Ferrari. Sun's family also received perks as part of the scheme, prosecutors alleged. And we're not going to go through every little thing that they're suggesting that they received. But there is your update. I know every once in a while we'll have someone comment on the program. Have we learned anything more? No, we have not. But that is a new charge. They were indicted, I should say, on new money laundering charge, Linda Sun and her husband. Also, Governor Hochul wants an official investigation into an organization. The organization is behind a $10 million advertising blitz that blasted Hochul for changes to a home health care program for the elderly and disabled. So because there is an organization out there that is critical of Governor Hochul and apparently has pretty big pockets, willing to spend $10 million on this ad campaign, her administration now wants an official investigation into the organization. And who did they go to first? The easiest one to go to if you want to start using lawfare, Attorney General Letitia James and the head of the State Ethics Board, James McDonald. They requested a formal inquiry into the Alliance to Protect Home Care and 2 other nonprofits tied to the expensive ad campaign, accusing the governor of gutting the care program and allowing a Georgia-based company to hijack it. McDonald, the state's top health regulator and a Hochul appointee, accused the group of flouting the state's ethics and charitable registration laws, in part by failing to disclose the true identity of the people or organizations funding the television, radio, and online ads blanketing the state in recent months. So if it's not tax-paying dollars being used to promote the job that Hochul is doing, the good job they think she's doing, if it's actual people's money used in an advertising campaign to highlight what they believe are wrongs that Hochul was involved in, it warrants an investigation, according to Governor Hochul's administration. Seems typical when you talk about New York State politics. So Governor Hochul's administration seeks investigation of a $10 million ad blitz against her. Probably concerned as it nears 2026. The bad publicity. We already know she faces that uphill battle, as we've been talking about, not just against the Republican Party, but an uphill battle. Well, it's not, the Republican Party is not an uphill battle, but she does have a battle ahead of her, but with the Democrat Party with a primary. There's a couple other things here about Hochul in New York State, and then we're going to get away from that and get right into probably at the top of definitely at the top of the hour, FEMA and DOGE, all that and much more. Keep your comments coming in, keep your waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
When it comes to cleaning your house or business, Magic Rags Cleaning Service has you covered from ceiling to floor. With powerful steam cleaning and attention to detail, we have you covered for moving out cleans, move-in cleans, Airbnbs, or just keeping everything neat and tidy. We go above and beyond in our residential and commercial cleaning, and our professional crew makes sure that your house or business is always ready for company. Call our number or schedule an appointment on Yelp or Facebook today.
The Bix website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. Hochul is supposed to be launching an audit into the utility companies because they are asking for huge increases of costs. She hypocritically says that she is doing this because she wants to keep prices down in New York State to make living here affordable. Look at the Climate Change Superfund. Look at all the ways that she's attacked fossil fuels and utilities. It is a joke, to your point. But this is why I'm saying she's just not there. She thinks she's at a higher level politically than she is, meaning campaigning-wise. Because actually Michael Goodwin has a really good piece on this, and he said, it is dawning on more and more New Yorkers that Governor Hochul is in over her head. I'm telling you, the New York Post watches this show. How many times have you heard me say that? Halfway through her 4th year in office, she's piling up a collection of failures and still making rookie blunders. The most fundamental one, that her policies are at odds with her stated goals. She says she wants safer streets and subways, but won't fight the legislature for big changes in the criminal justice system, which favors criminals over the victims. The same mismatch is clear with her economic goals. She says she wants to make New York more affordable, but keeps raising taxes and spending, which are driving the cost of living higher and higher. How does she not understand such basic things? The policy mismatch might be fixable if her politics were clever and first rate, but they are also incoherent. She's seen as a pushover in Albany and as invisible in the city, raising questions about what exactly she does all day. Most importantly, in the dog-eat-dog world of politics, nobody is afraid of her. And we've talked about this in the past. Cuomo, for whatever you think of Cuomo, people did not want to get on the wrong side of him. He was very vindictive. Governor Hochul backs down. That's why she hasn't tried to make any real serious changes to bail reform and the like. Then you've got congestion pricing, which was just bad. The way she's handled it. Obviously, she kept it out until after the election. Then you have, as Michael Goodwin says, her biggest mistake is that she's listening to Hakeem Jeffries, perhaps because he is a Democrats' House minority leader. Hochul thinks he knows what he's doing, or maybe she's afraid of him. Either way, Jeffries' advice is purely partisan, and he is obviously in the real-world outcomes of progressive policies. And this has to do with delaying that special election. He never, remember, Hakeem Jeffries never saw a sign of Joe Biden's cognitive decline and supported every single bill Biden sent to Congress, including those that drove up inflation. Recall, it was also Jeffries who urged Hochul to pause congestion pricing before the election because it would be a killer for suburban Democrats. He wanted to be Speaker, and if deception was required to win the House majority, he was fine with that. So Hochul obeyed by announcing her pause and then flip-flopped and imposed a tax soon after the votes were counted. Aides whispered to anti-Trump media that she did it quickly before he took office so he couldn't stop it. Trump doesn't buy the idea that he can't reverse it. He says he has a plan to kill the tax through federal powers if Hochul won't do it herself. But she's just like with that special election. Jeffrey's goal was to shrink the GOP House majority to 1 or 2 seats in the hopes that Democrats could thwart Trump's legislative agenda and maybe even seize the majority for themselves through resignations or deaths in the next 2 years. And so the Democrat thinking goes, they would make a deal with Trump. He would accept congestion pricing if they would withdraw the legislation and proceed with an election for Stefanik's seat soon. Hochul and Trump have talked several times, and the latest development is that she suddenly flip-flopped on the election law legislation and now wants to put it on ice. In effect, she's pausing it to see what Trump does. He could call her bluff by killing the congestion plan. He was right from the start that it's a job killer. So at the end of the day, it shouldn't be lost on Hochul and New York congressional Democrats that that Hochul's failures pile up and her blunders are no match against President Trump. All right, we got some comments coming in. We're good. 2 quick things on New York when we come back. Then we will cover FEMA. We will cover Doge, all of that and much more. Stay with us. This is, frankly speaking, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 on its way.
It's the preseason service special at Lindsay Equipment. Save $50 on your seasonal John Deere equipment service or get half off pickup and delivery. Plus, get a basic oil change service for just $199. Call or go to lindsay-equipmentus.com for details.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story.
Hour number 2, hit the wrong button. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. A lot of comments coming in. Let's get right to them. I wonder if Kathy Hochul thinks that holding up our representatives in New York is getting us votes or getting her more votes. I didn't vote for her last time, and I certainly won't this time. Yeah, it sends a bad message. I think that's why she's walking away from it. And obviously for a couple of reasons. One, that Trump could maybe take away that congestion toll, but also that it just had bad PR around it. Sorry, we had so many other comments coming in here. Okay. Just a general comment. It's no wonder that Democrat-run states have the highest tax rates when compared to Republican-controlled states. And how do states like Tennessee get by without having a state income tax? Yeah, isn't it amazing? Well, that's why so many people are going to places like Tennessee. They can make it. It's not a problem if they spend like we do. Yeah, we couldn't do it without the state taxes because look at the $254 billion budget that she proposed. All right, comment from a different viewer. I had the privilege of assisting a local group taking 2 tractor-trailer loads of generators, gas cans, water, and other goods for the devastated area of North Carolina. I can honestly say I saw no government aid, only area churches and neighbors helping one another. And that's why there's such a magnifying glass, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, on FEMA. So thank you for that. Jumping back to a New York State issue. Frank, have you seen the gun control bill that is being put forth in New York. It will require a state-administered mental health exam before you can buy any pistol, rifle, or shotgun, a state-administered drug test before you can buy any pistol, rifle, or shotgun, a 5-hour safety course before you can buy any pistol, rifle, or shotgun, to include a live fire shooting test where you must score of 90% to possess a gun, and documentation that you possess a gun safe to store your firearms. Obviously, the intent is to try and make the ownership of a firearm so onerous that many people won't qualify or don't try. Well, that's essentially what they've done with the pistol permit process for a lot of people. Okay, so to that viewer talking about North Carolina, thank you for that, by the way. We are going to talk about FEMA, but first, with Mayor Adams' charges dismissed, now they're saying that Cuomo's got to, well, he's got to either get in or get out, that the waffling could end any time now, that he may declare or not that he's running for mayor. Also in New York lawmakers want to add Zyn flavors to ban on flavored nicotine. Now, a lot of people early on were able to quit cigarettes because of vaping, because of the Juuls. And then they banned the flavors, so a lot of people went either back to smoking or whatever. The same with these Zyns. They have caused a lot of people to be able to cut back or to quit smoking. But Albany doesn't look at that as a positive. They're looking at other ways to ban. It's just a few years. Oral nicotine pouches have gone from a niche cigarette alternative to a national fixation, and now a political lightning rod. The tiny pouches are the fastest growing product on the U.S. tobacco market, although they do not contain tobacco. They're placed between the user's lips and gums, just like chewing tobacco, right? And there's a lot of people known to use them. I guess Josh Allen praised them. Some have speculated that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. may have had one in during the hearing. But now Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal said she had similar concerns about Zyn, which come in flavors like mint, citrus, and coffee, so they want to see a ban, just like they saw a ban of the vapes. They're always the overreach. There's always a look to see how much power they can grab. Okay, that was kind of in tying with hand with what Ken was saying. All right, let's get to FEMA. 4 federal emergency management agency employees have been fired for sending $59 million to New York City to house and care for illegal migrants. Now, I know I read this post to you earlier, but coming from the DHS, it said, effective immediately, FEMA is terminating the employment of 4 individuals for circumventing leadership to unilaterally make erroneous payments to luxury New York City hotels for migrants. How is that even possible, to circumvent leadership and spend $59 million? And would we have ever known about this expense if Elon Musk and Doge hadn't been focused on FEMA and cutting back? I know yesterday he talked about with Social Security, he said, look, there's people that we're still sending checks to that are 105 years old. Or 150 years old, 150 years. How does that work? Tell me why that is the case. But the firings, first reported by Fox, include FEMA's chief financial officer, 2 program analysts, and a grant specialist. Quote, under President Trump and Secretary Noem's leadership, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people, the statement said. The massive payment was blasted by Elon Musk, who Doge highlighted the transaction on Monday. So again, would we have known about this as taxpayers if it weren't for Doge and this now magnifying glass on government spending? That money is meant for American disaster relief and instead is being spent on high-end hotels for illegals, Musk quoted, and promised Doge would be making a clawback demand to recoup those funds. Cameron Hamilton, FEMA's acting administrator, said in response that FEMA had suspended payments sent to New York City to house migrants beginning on Monday. New York City Hall officials have said they have not been notified of any pause in funding and that no one had contacted them regarding Musk's clawback demand. Officials also denied Musk's assertion that the cash went to luxury hotels without specifying his name or not naming him personally. Only $19 million of the $59 million that the Tesla CEO highlighted in his tweet will go towards housing migrants in hotels. Oh, only $19 million. Whew. Never mind then. Call off the dogs. We already spent over $7 billion on this crisis alone, and the previous administration committed only $237 million in funding to help house the migrants in our care and for future services, the City Hall statement read. So 4 people making erroneous payments, and now you see a lot of people scrambling, trying to cover their you-know-whats. But this is just the beginning. Trump has signed an order to potentially toss an entire agency while reducing federal workforce to essential jobs only. He is set to sign an order instructing the Department of Government Efficiency to potentially toss entire federal agencies and hire only 1 federal worker to replace every 4 who leave. DOGE will ask agency heads to coordinate with a team being led by Elon Musk and shrink the size of the federal workforce and limit hiring to essential positions. And that's kind of the irony when there's a government shutdown, and I know we've talked about it before, where they'll say essential employees only. Well, shouldn't it always be essential employees only? Entire agencies and parts of agencies may be eliminated because their functions aren't required by law. Personnel relating to national security, public safety, law enforcement, and immigration enforcement are exempt from this order. Trump implemented a hiring freeze as soon as he took office on January 20th on all civilian federal jobs and instructed DOGE and the director of the Office of Management and Budget to come up with a plan in 90 days to reduce the size of government. We're going to talk about DOGE more when we come back, because they're already finding a lot to cut. Yesterday, you may have seen Elon Musk at that press conference in the Oval Office with the president, and well, his son was there too, Elon Musk's son. We're also going to show you what some of the media are saying about Musk, because it is now, quote unquote, full constitutional crisis mode. The richest man is attacking the poorest man. Boy, there is a lot of talk about USAID and their anger with any type of government cutback. Even though we look how much waste, fraud, and corruption we've seen in these organizations, FEMA, USAID, and that's why many in Washington are scared. When some of the names were being mentioned about Trump's cabinet, they said heads exploded all over Washington. Well, so the bureaucrats are concerned, and that's exactly what Elon Musk is pointing out, that this does not need to be we do not need to be run by the bureaucracy. So we're going to talk about that. And like I said, some media updates on that, a couple other things maybe. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the job. And we've heard from you a little bit already this morning, but the job that Elon Musk and DOGE are doing already. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
In those 18 months, Bath Planet has given away 3 dream bathroom makeovers, and now it's your turn. It's our absolute pleasure to announce Dream Bathroom Giveaway 4. On March 3rd, one local family is going to get a dream bathroom makeover for free. Whether you want a tub to lounge or a walk-in shower for accessibility, Bath Planet is excited to give away our 4th free bathroom makeover. Enter now by scanning the QR code or stopping by either of our 2 locations.
Hard water makes it hard to keep your home looking like the work of art you've always envisioned it would be. Culligan softeners reduce hard water buildup and your cleaning time, transforming every drop, every splash, every rinse into the fine art of a long-lasting clean. With a Culligan water softener, revel in the breathtaking beauty of your home, just the way you've always pictured it. Culligan, water you love.
We're up, America. The Ford President's Day sales event is here. Save on the vehicles that will take you places, give you a surge of productivity, and a new sense of freedom. So head to your local Ford store, because it's time to get in the driver's seat. A special offer for Jeep owners. Right now, you can lease a Ford Bronco for just $269 a month for 24 months, only at your local
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Maybe if we'd quit taking care of people who come here illegally, they would stop coming. Remember, the Democrats removed homeless veterans from a hotel to put illegals in. Yeah, that was a story that broke quite some time ago, quite a few years ago now. So it really comes as no surprise that $59 million payment was being made to house illegal migrants in New York City. I do like that the excuse is that they unilaterally went around leadership and did this, these 4 people. That's a lot of power for 4 people. Yes, a lot. $59 million in luxury hotels for illegals. And North Carolina is struggling, and they got hit with a storm on a Democrat's watch. FEMA needs to go. Well, thank you very much. To your point, that's a comment from a different viewer. There is Isabel Vincent at the New York Post said the Federal Emergency Management Agency has mismanaged tens of billions of dollars over the years, according to numerous government reports into spending. The government agency's response to COVID, hurricanes, floods, and housing migrants have all come under fire for being wasteful and going largely unchecked, as the newly created Department of Government Efficiency has been sent in to analyze its spending. The most recent audit of the Embattled Disaster Response Agency claimed it's mismanaged nearly $10 billion during the COVID pandemic between 2020 and 2023. $10 billion. But, you know, I mean, hasn't FEMA always been criticized for kind of poor management? FEMA even approved a grant of $1.1 billion, despite it only being supported by a single piece of paper with no itemized cost. That's according to a January 30th audit by the Department of Homeland Security's Office of the Inspector General. So here's $1.1 billion, even though it was a single piece of paper with no itemized costs. Wow. The request was also not prepared by a licensed professional engineer or cost estimating professional, according to the 36-page report. So this is just an inside of FEMA's kind of sickening history, as they put it here. The Trump administration has called for a complete overhaul of FEMA, which has a budget of $65 million for the fiscal year 2025. Read that number again, $65 billion. During the pandemic, $1.5 billion was doled out for one state's medical staffing without the proper vetting and could have been put to better use for other disasters, the audit found. These issues occurred due to the unprecedented circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic and FEMA not following established requirements when delivering public assistance funding. It also cited $8.1 billion distributed by FEMA, which are costs that have yet to be determined allowable. 8.1. Well, now we know how it was so easy for 4 people who were ultimately fired, but 4 people to bypass leadership and send $59 million to those hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. So as you can tell, this is just basically a blank check from the United States taxpayer used by people that are not competent to be using it. A leading FEMA critic said there's no doubt the agency made a mess of COVID disaster relief. Quote, what we sometimes fail to remember is that in the aftermath of a disaster, there are victims, and this bureaucracy has just continued to re-victimize those victims, said Garrett Graves, a former Republican congressman from Louisiana. I appreciate the gesture, but it's such a dysfunctional bureaucracy that I don't think I would last a month, adding that he supports Musk's plan to streamline the agency. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said in an interview on Sunday she's in favor of getting rid of FEMA the way it exists today. And then, of course, we mentioned Musk announcing that DOGE just discovered FEMA doled out $59 million to house migrants in luxury hotels in New York City. On Tuesday, 4 FEMA employees were fired, as I mentioned. FEMA has handed out more than $1.4 billion in housing and aid for migrants over the last 2 years, according to an earlier audit. A 2023 report by the DHS Office of the Inspector General investigated $110 million in humanitarian relief funds given to local organizations. It concluded those organizations didn't use the funds in the way they were required to, couldn't provide required receipts or documentation, and that some of the aid went to illegal migrants. In October of last year, Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, came under fire when he said FEMA did not have enough money to make it through the Atlantic hurricane season after Hurricane Helene surged through Southeastern states, followed days later by Hurricane Milton, hitting Florida, causing up to $60 billion in damage. In the midst of the back-to-back hurricanes, an additional $20 billion in funds were approved for FEMA by Congress. The agency spent $9 billion of that money in a little over a week. Oh man, there are so many people making a lot of money off the bureaucracy, and people and groups, I should say, like FEMA. Now, in the August 2024 audit of the agency, it found it wasted $7 billion in unliquidated funds that could potentially be returned to the disaster relief fund because FEMA agents did not follow the proper process. Also, federal regulations and FEMA guidance provided no incentive to close out grants in a timely manner or consequences for failure to do so. Meaning money was in the accounts of states who did not need it. Without improved oversight and stronger policies, billions of dollars of unliquidated funds that could otherwise be returned will remain obligated to state, territorial, tribal, or local governments and unavailable for use in providing relief in connection with current disasters. And the waste doesn't end there. As the report said, it has also reviewed a sample of 20 other grants and identified approximately $32.8 billion in improper payments. FEMA's lack of transparency and spending waste was previously documented by the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee back in 2017. And that's why I think so many people, and we've heard from many of you out there today and in the past, it's the transparency that is needed. The DOJ is bringing this transparency so that we know how our tax dollars are being spent. So when you hear $59 million being spent on hotels for illegal migrants, it raises some red flags. And DOJ also ended nearly $1 billion in federal education contracts to nix waste and DEI. Nearly $1 billion. Oh, how am I doing on time? Well, we'll talk about this when we come back. But nearly $1 billion in contracts with the Federal Department of Education have been terminated. We'll talk about that when we come back and read your comments. If you are just waking up this morning, that detained U.S. teacher, the wrongfully detained U.S. teacher, Mark Fogel, was at the White House yesterday after being released from the Russian prison after 3.5 years. He calls Trump a hero during that meeting. All right, stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
When it comes to cleaning your house or business, Magic Rags Cleaning Service has you covered from ceiling to floor. With powerful steam cleaning and attention to detail, we have you covered for moving out cleans, move-in cleans, Airbnbs, or just keeping everything neat and tidy. We go above and beyond in our residential and commercial cleaning, and our professional crew makes sure that your house or business is always ready for company. Call our number or schedule an appointment on Yelp or Facebook today.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Just reading all these great comments. Thank you again for joining us. All right, let's go to some of these comments, shall we? We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Did I say that? I got distracted. Allowing illegals to enter and stay in the U.S. is a slap in the face to those who do it legally, that have taken the tests, learned English, taken oath, and pay for the privilege to become a U.S. citizen. Illegals knowingly breaking our law to enter. Why would we expect them to obey any other laws? Look at the amount of crimes committed. Yes, been a major issue in specifically New York City, but elsewhere as well. As a matter of fact, well, we have an immigration update a little bit later on. Okay, good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. This is a little off topic, but I know that you can handle it. Well, thank you. As a 150-year-old, I hope either that was a typo or you're making a joke about the that Doge found that some people on Social Security, well, people 150 years old were receiving Social Security checks, obviously raising some concerns for some fraud there as well. But okay, we'll accept you at 150 years old. It occurred to me that Trump is the only president in my lifetime that hasn't had a pet at the White House. The next time you talk to him, you might want to advise him to adopt a pet with the SPCA. People think I talk to Trump way too much. He would probably gain 20% popularity instantly. I know that he's too busy to spend any time with it, but he could send it to Biden's house each day as a therapy pet. Yes, just thinking out loud. Well, and I don't know, you don't want to send him to Biden's house. Remember how his dogs were acting. How many Secret Service agents got hurt because of, I can't remember the dog's name. No, it escapes my mind. But I know, yeah, that seems like a good idea. I don't know, that came up in his first 4 years, and I don't remember the exact reason what was given as to why he doesn't want a pet. Maybe it is because he couldn't spend time with it. Maybe he isn't. I've never really thought of him as a kind of a pet person, for whatever that's worth. But as I mentioned, nearly $1 billion in contracts with the Federal Department of Education have been terminated, including one for $1.5 million to observe mailing and clerical operations at a mail facility, and scores involving DEI. So $1.5 million being spent by the Department of Education to observe mailing and clerical operations. Good work if you can find it. 89 contracts worth more than $881 million have been ended. Doge boasted about it on Monday without providing specifics on the cuts, although critics said they target programs designed to track student progress. Doge said it also took the fiscal chainsaw to 29 diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, costing a total of around $101 million. Outside education groups claim the main target of the latest rounds of cuts was Education Department's Institute of Education Sciences, which conducts evaluations and research to help produce statistics on students' academic standings. IES also helps oversee the National Assessment of Educational Progress exam and coordinating U.S. participation in the Program for International Student Assessment, which is used to compare students' academic standings in countries around the world. Anyway, Musk defended yesterday the firings the Doge has been making, saying, and I quote, "The U.S. should not live in a bureaucracy. The U.S. should not be run by a bureaucracy." Speaking next to the president, you may have seen the videos by now. He had his son, his rambunctious little son, kind of all over the place as he was in the Oval Office talking to the press. If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy, Musk said. The president gave Musk another mandate Tuesday to direct agencies to keep only essential employees and eliminate unneeded agencies altogether, giving them even more authority to overhaul the U.S. government, which is driving a lot of people crazy. They actually said, and we may be able to get to it a little bit later on, but Democrats are upset because they've kind of, representatives, that is, Democrat representatives, are getting more calls from really what you consider their own people, their own party, complaining about Trump and Musk, and they can't do anything. But I'll continue. Critics have skewered Doge for combing through federal agencies and eliminating vast tranches of money set aside for federal projects, including eliminating the entire U.S. Agency for International Development, nixing a museum exhibit for former COVID czar Anthony Fauci, and ending costly new subscriptions for federal bodies. Isn't that interesting? That was one that didn't get a lot of media attention, but yes, they ended that museum display. That was quite a bit of money. What was it, $150,000 or something like that? That was going for a display on Anthony Fauci. We do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, Musk claimed. Ooh, and I wonder some are pushing back so strongly. Which is what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. I think the reality is that they're getting wealthier at taxpayers' expense. Musk did not provide any specific examples, although foreign contracting historically has been vulnerable to fraudulent self-dealing. Opponents have expressed concern that Musk, the world's richest man, is unelected, yet has great access to altering the executive branch. The headline, and we're going to get to some media coverage on Musk, but the headline that I read is the richest man goes after the poorest, and it's all about them looking into USAID. But courts have pushed back on Trump's push to revamp the federal government structure and said Tuesday he would abide by the rulings but would be appealing. Trump had invited Musk to the Oval Office to unveil an executive order, further giving DOJ a mandate to fire non-essential federal workers. The order, previewed by the New York Post, would apply to all federal workers other than those working in national security, public safety, law enforcement, and immigration enforcement. It also allows DOJ to shut down entire agencies. The new order would kick in 90 days after Trump's January 20th directive implementing a federal hiring freeze. The president argued he doesn't need congressional approval to comb through the federal agencies for corruption and fraud, but that he would have their approval if he went ahead with a vote. We're finding tremendous fraud and tremendous abuse. If I need a vote of Congress to find fraud and abuse, it's fine with me. I think we'll get the vote, although some people wouldn't vote, Trump said. I hope that the court system is going to allow us to do what we have to do. We got elected to, among other things, find all of this fraud and abuse. And then I mentioned Musk saying just a cursory examination of Social Security, and we got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone 150? I don't, okay? That should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. I think they're probably dead. That's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. The DOJ leader further highlighted that he was a confounding issue slowing the pace of federal retirements. We were told that the most number of people that would retire possibly in a month is 10,000 because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated. They're written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. There's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. He also acknowledged that he could be wrong at times as he highlights examples of the alleged waste on X, which he owns, including recent criticism of $50 million in U.S.-funded condoms for Gaza, which turned out to be Gaza Providence rather than the Hamas-ruled Palestinian enclave. Some of the things I say will be incorrect, and I should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. You know, we all make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. This is really an enormous number of condoms if you think about it. But you know, if you went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad. But you still know what? Why are we doing that? Yeah, it's still $50 million at the end of the day, but they're looking for anything to be critical. As a matter of fact, an Oregon congresswoman has determined to protect federal workers from Musk. We're going to talk about that, give you a couple of media updates on Musk and Trump in general. And then we have a couple other things as well. If you are just joining us, we mentioned it earlier in the program that that U.S. teacher that was detained in Russia has been released from that Russian prison after 3.5 years. He was at the White House yesterday and met with Donald Trump. All right, let's take a short break. One quick thing. I know I mentioned this yesterday, but the Assemblyman sent out a reminder, and I want to remind you because the time is ticking down for this, and that is the second annual student art contest hosted by Donate Life New York. The cutoff date is the 28th, so if you're thinking of putting together a project, you may want to start on that project right away. Students are encouraged to share their donation stories and perspectives on organ donations through art. Submissions must be in by February 28th, and winners will be notified by March 21st. There are 4 separate categories for the contest: elementary, 4th, and 5th grades, middle school, 6th through 8th grades, and high school, 9th and 10th grades, and 11th and 12th grades. Artwork will be hung throughout the Legislative Office Building during Donate Life Month in April. Winners will receive a $100 gift card and will be recognized at a press conference to be held on April 8th in Albany. So there's your link at the bottom of the screen to find out more. But I know that date's coming right up, and we thank the Assemblyman for passing that information along to us. All right, when we come back, we'll read some more of your comments. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I would never picture that I have. I'm the only one that's not smiling. Even though I'm with my close friends, I felt alone. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel confident. When I got Invisalign, I built my confidence. It was the best investment that I could do.
This was our last chance to show who our son was. I can't say enough about pre-planning. When you are in those moments, you are not thinking clearly.
We showed up for the remembrance, and we walked in, and we just, wow.
It was arranged perfectly. Yeah. I certainly could not have done that in that moment. So to have those pre-conversations, it's really important.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustleson's Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustleson's Hot Tub. With every spa purchase, Hustleson's guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustleson's Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustleson's chemical auto ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustleson's.
At Mason's Day Sale, make your home more you, more rustic, more modern, more classic. With up to 60% off furniture and mattresses. Plus, our best financing of the year is available. Today at Macy's.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So as I was mentioning, there is an Oregon Congresswoman who has started or proposed the Stop Musk Act. Now, the Stop Musk Act states no federal employee may be retaliated against, including any retaliation occurring on or after the date of the enactment of this act, for resisting, circumventing, or preventing Elon Musk or individuals he oversees from taking unlawful or unconstitutional actions relating to federal agencies. Now, the bill addresses what Representative Dexter alleges is Musk's recent seizure of control of the U.S. Department of Treasury's payment system, exposing Oregonians' personal financial information, shuttering the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and putting the lives of millions of people at risk. And that is kind of the talking point. There's a lot of constitutional crisis talk. There's a lot being focused on. See, they focus on USAID. They don't talk about the waste, fraud, and corruption. They talk about the poorest, as we hear here, putting people's lives at risk. She alleges that the billionaire has, quote, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration undermining our work to combat the climate crisis. This is only the beginning. Under the legislation, federal employees who resist, circumvent, or prevent Musk's takeover will be protected against any present or future retaliation for their efforts. The world's richest man should not have the power to unilaterally dismantle the federal government and the critical services it provides. Federal employees are at the forefront of fighting Elon Musk's power grab, and we must protect them. So the Stop Musk Act. But tying in with the language that representative was using, Coming from the Hill, Bill Press, an opinion contributor, writes, the richest man on the planet attacks the poorest. Let's begin by stipulating that everybody agrees with. There's a lot of wasteful spending in government, a lot of overlap, and too many programs that no longer serve any purpose kept needlessly alive. Pledging to cut the fat out of government spending is a good idea for any administration, and some have actually done so. So it's, we can all agree, no, nothing's ever done about it, but we can all agree there's just too much. Well, look how much we've learned on the cursory of what little bit has been, not little bit, but what has been brought to our attention so far. Would we have ever known about the $59 million payment going to hotels for illegal migrants in New York City? We would have never known. And so that's just one example. Like he was saying was Social Security. People still receiving checks at 150 years old. But again, this opinion writer says but there's still no way to justify Elon Musk's shutting down the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, which President Trump said has his 100% support. It's one of the most short-sighted, most dangerous, and most stupid decisions made by any modern president, and one Donald Trump will soon regret, especially as Russia and China step in with their own humanitarian programs. So the thought here is to suggest that Russia and China will take over as humanitarian leaders because USAID was really having too much waste, fraud, and corruption. So when they go to cut it back, which they did, there's a pushback that it's going to be one of the most disastrous decisions ever made, according, again, to Bill Press. And he goes through and gives you all the reasons why he believes the money was put to good use. Musk and Trump decided to start out with one of the smallest government agencies, which does the most good around the world for the least amount of money. But that's what bullies do. That's Bill Press. Okay. The establishment media is portraying Trump's deconstruction of the deep state as a constitutional crisis. That has kind of been the talking point for the last week. Reporters and pundits portrayal of Trump's actions appear to be a signal for what is perhaps to come if Democrats gain control of the House in 2026. Isn't it amazing? Everybody's talking about 2026 already. Legacy media and Democrat operatives appear particularly upset that the Department of Government Efficiency gained access to the federal payment system. That was one of the that and the USAID. As Trump overhauls government, a constitutional crisis looms, they write at CNN. Politico wrapped the constitutional crisis allegations in a nutshell for its readers. Donald Trump's stunning disregard for almost every legal norm is hitting crisis point this week as his government suffers multiple defeats in courts across the land. On Monday alone, 5 different judges around the U.S. issued temporary blocks on 5 different Trump-ordered executive actions, per a message left last night from Politico legal eagle Kyle Cheney. Never before has a new president clashed with the courts on such a scale. The Washington Post's Amber Phillips wrote the headline, "What is a constitutional crisis?" I could go on. The list goes on and on. They've all got their talking points. Oh, the AP was very upset yesterday, too, on a completely unrelated note. The Associated Press was upset because the White House cut out the reporter from the Oval Office presser because the outlet still uses Gulf of Mexico instead of Gulf of America. The Associated Press was furious after the White House disallowed the outlet's reporter from joining Donald Trump and the King of Jordan's press gaggle in the Oval Office. The White House apparently denied the organization access because it refuses to officially and fully recognize Gulf of America's name change from the Gulf of Mexico. The Associated Press executive editor Tara Kopp tweeting out, "Today, our AP White House reporter was denied access to the Oval Office because the Associated Press recognizes the international body of water on our southern coastline as the Gulf of Mexico, while acknowledging President Donald Trump's order to rename it the Gulf of America." And a refusal to go along with a name change comes as the Associated Press often updates its style guides to reflect name changes. Anyway, Katie Britt was giving an interview. Senator Katie Britt from Alabama reacted to the outrage from her Democrat colleagues in the Senate over the Trump administration's efforts to rein in government waste. And that's what it is, rein it in, clean up House, as Elon Musk said yesterday, to no longer be a bureaucracy run by the bureaucracy. But the Alabama Republican said, I am absolutely sick of the outrage. You know, it's not the process they have the problem with. It's the result. I thought that was a very powerful message. It is the fact that we are seeing that there are slush funds where they were misusing taxpayers' dollars that were going to things that they do not fulfill the mission of this country. Those things are being called into question. We are going to continue to have these conversations. We're going to continue to look at how we do rein in spending. You look at departments like the Department of Education, where the mission of the department and the results now, I mean, you know, they were supposed to close the gap between the have and the have-not. Let me tell you, what they have not done, close the gap. And so if a department or an agency was set up to achieve a goal and we are no better off as a result of them doing that or being there, why in the world would we continue to fund it or continue to allow it to exist? So we're going to continue to have a tough conversation. But at the end, results and the goal of each and every person of those is a good use of taxpayer dollars and putting Americans in a stronger position to be safe, to be more secure, and to be more prosperous and have an opportunity to achieve the American dream. So they're not, it's not the process that the Democrats have a problem with, is what Katie Britt is saying. It's the results. And we've seen so many results in real time and at a quick pace. And I thought that was a very good point. Joe Rogan defended Elon Musk and his Doge crackdown, saying it's good for everybody. Joe Rogan called Elon Musk a super genius as he defended the tech mogul's work-slashing federal spending through the Department of Government Efficiency, claiming the cutbacks are good for everyone. He has $400 billion. He's not going to steal your money. I'm telling you, he's not going to steal your money. I'm telling you that's not what he's doing. And that's in reference to them taking over the payment system. The party is just getting started, Rogan said. He's a super genius that's been, we'll say, messed with. And when you've been messed with by these people that hide behind three-letter agencies, and you're dealing with one of the smartest people alive, and he helps Donald Trump get into office, and he goes, I want to find out what kind of corruption is really around. You messed up and picked the wrong psychopath on the spectrum, Rogan laughed. He's going to hunt you down. He's going to find out what's going on, and that's good. That's good for everybody. That's how it should be. Wow, we have a brilliant mind that is examining this corrupt and goofy system and bringing in a bunch of wizards. The idea, though, that to tap Musk to do this and how effective it has been so far is very fascinating. And I think that's why there's so much anger. We're learning more and more. Now, the legal experts are, we got to take a break. Legal experts are baffled by the courts intruding significantly on Trump's presidential authority. That's specifically Jonathan Turley. I just heard the corning whistle, so let me take a short break and we'll get into a few more other issues on the Trump administration and wrap up our discussion. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Frankly Speaking, Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
I have diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio here on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Hey, FEMA. I bet the homeless, struggling vets could have used that $59 million. Well, fantastic point. And I don't know, they said, the official statement was that these 4 kind of rogue employees circumvented leadership to send this money to New York City. What was the end game there? Was it because their dislike of Musk? Were they trying to do it before Doge came closing in on them? What was the gain to be had? And if Musk wasn't around and Doge wasn't around, would we have ever known about that $59 million payment? How many other millions of dollars of payments have there been for hotels, for illegal migrants, and for many other issues that Doge is now pointing out, and that kind of waste and fraud? And is there issues with the wrong people, the money falling in the hands of wrong people to get the deals done? That's a good question too. How many of these people have read the list of where money in USAID were going? It was foolishness. Yeah, if you read the list, as a lot of people have been sharing, as Musk even said yesterday, well, even if some of it isn't accurate, correct me then. We're just trying to get you the information, and it is well, terrifying. I was going to say fascinating, but it's terrifying how much money was being thrown around, and to what the foolishness, to use that viewer's word. A comment from Fred. Good morning, Frank. Hey, good morning, Fred. Nice to hear from you. I'm not convinced that many of the projects that Doge is finding actually exist. Grant writing is a position for which people are hired at most nonprofits. A creative grant writer could ask for money for anything that the current political atmosphere would accept, and then funnel that money into whatever they want. From personal enrichment, which is kind of what Musk and others had kind of been speculating, to CIA black ops. Proof that money sent out of the country was ever used as requested in a grant is impossible. Well, that's why the media doesn't like what's going on, but it does need a major change, a major disruption like this to really clean house. And I think some people are recognizing that. I think some people are scared that the gravy train is maybe run up. But legal experts, specifically Jonathan Turley, said, I think that Trump is on a very solid ground with the buyout. And that's in reference to the Trump administration's buyout offer to federal employees being blocked by a judge. But it should come as no surprise. We remember what they did to Trump back in his first term when it comes to judges, and really after his term with lawfare. They're going to try to gum up the works. They're going to try to be a wrench in the plans. But I'm still a bit baffled, this is Jonathan Turley, about what the court is doing here. If the presidents are allowed to dictate conditions of employees coming into the office, what they're working on, all of that is part of Article 2 powers of the president controlling the executive branch. I'm not even today certain that the constitutional problem, what it even is, the constitutional problem really is. You've got 65,000 employees who were told, look, we'll let you stay at home and look for a job as long as you agree to resign and to give a number of months. They agreed to it. The government agreed to it. That seems to me to be perfectly within the wheelhouse of the president. So I think he's going to win that. Congress can make decisions. They're the ones who buy ships. But it is the president that decides who's going to take the ship out and the crew. He can reduce the number of crew members. And so there are different aspects of authority here. I think that the court is really intruding significantly in the president's authority. He's allowed to downsize, and they're allowed due process. They're allowed employment protections, but they're not allowed to permanent employment. I thought that was Jonathan Turley. We try to read statements from him as frequently as we can. Let's see. How am I doing on time? Jonathan Hart says, make the Doge revolution stick. Let Musk and taxpayers reveal what's really in America's checkbook. Progressives are panicking because their 100-year, largely successful assault on American constitutional government is in danger of being reversed. Thanks to Musk's wise plan to follow the money, he has a historic opportunity to mount a coup, not on behalf of himself or President Trump, but for we the people. But to make the revolution stick, we have to make transparency a permanent feature of our federal government. He could do it with a simple tool allowing individual Americans to view the Treasury payment system in real time, called America's Checkbook. Our nonprofit organization, Open the Books, is ready to help. So hoping that, and that's who Jonathan Hart is with. He's Chief Executive Officer of Open the Books and the former Communications Director for U.S. Senator Tom Colbert. If Americans' checkbook will give citizens a megaphone and silence critics. It will prove our leaders' confidence in the wisdom of we the people, our system of checks and balances, and the genius of America's founders. All right, let's take a short break. Then we're going to wrap up. Get your last-minute comments in. We're going to wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Want to know why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning is now offering residential plumbing services. A local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. You can trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
At May President's Day sale, make your home more you, more rustic, more modern, more classic. With up to 60% off furniture and mattresses. Plus, our best financing of the year is available today at Macy's.
In a game of few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Give them a call today for all your business and home security needs. We are wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you, everybody, joining us. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I watched my president at 10:30 last night greeting Mark Fogel at the White House, and it was really something to see. It was heartening, and my president's still strong at that hour. What a contrast from the former, and what a moment. I'm cautiously optimistic for others to be returned if they're even alive. You raise a really good point on that, to think, and it was a very touching event, as Mark Fogel had an American flag wrapped around his shoulders and a beer in his hand, celebrating. I thought that was really funny because he's right next to a teetotaler with Donald Trump, but had that beer in his hand. I just thought that was kind of sweet, seeing that he was enjoying his freedom after spending 3.5 years in that Russian prison. And for whatever reason, it seems as if Biden's administration just didn't seem that interested in negotiations to get him out. That was quite a news story at the time. But anyway, but you raise a good point that there it is at 10:30. I'm not even up at 10:30. And here's a man who's been busy nonstop all day, and he's still up and looked great at 10:30 as if he's just starting the day. So good point. Thank you. Oh, interesting. There's a comment from a viewer here. Democrats are crying and still have not come to realize they lost and things are going to change. You raise a good point that ties in with a piece from the Washington Post that says, here's how dejected the Democrats really are. It's no secret the Democrats are adrift, dare we say, in disarray as a party right now. As we know, Trump bombards with his efforts to reshape the government. But really, the party is just reflecting its base right now. Democrat officials are dispirited, just like their base is despondent, to the extent that they don't seem to have much fight in them. And that shouldn't be too surprising. Their voters don't either. And a growing volume of polls drive home just how much of a malaise has set in. Just 7% of Democrats picked excited, and just 10% picked motivated. Only 20% said they were even interested in a poll asking about U.S. politics. So the lack of enthusiasm. They also, and I mentioned this kind of quickly, I know I'm running late, this is where I start to get tongue twisted. But the left is frustrated with the far left groups like Move On and Indivisible. Move On was the group that was in the hearings, like with Hegseth, and started a disruption. That this is these groups are calling their Democrat lawmakers nonstop. This is what it said. Lawmakers told Axios that angry constituents have been ringing their phones off the hook with demands that they more adequately resist Trump. a situation over which they maintain little control. Democrats feel that constituents have been setting their expectations too high and should understand that they now hold the minority position in Congress. Some staffers say they haven't seen this many calls since seminal events like the October 7th attack, the Brett Kavanaugh hearing, or even the Trump impeachment proceedings. A spokesperson for Representative Don Baer said the office's phones have been ringing off the hook without pause since we opened yesterday morning. Every Democrat is getting lit up by these resistance folks being like, you've got to do more. To that viewer's point, we are out of time for today's edition. One last one. Welcome home, Mark. Glad to see Mr. Trump bring you back. Yes, that was a really touching ceremony yesterday where Mark Fogel returned from that Russian prison after 3.5 years. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Boy, a lot of conversation this morning. Really appreciate it as always. We will be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. So I hope that you will join us. And that number on the bottom of the screen, you can reach out at any time. 24/7. So if something pops up later on, you want to talk about it, just go ahead and we'll talk about it on tomorrow's edition of Frankly Speaking. Again, every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking. Only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already.
Hustling, plus overbooked, plus bustling, plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done. Plus too busy, plus bustling, plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's, relax, it's done.